What's up, Leafs fans, and welcome back to Leafs Digest. Now, we haven't had much news to break down lately, other than really the line changes that happened the other day, except there was something that I kind of sneakily got into in the post-game reaction last night, which, not to mention, the Toronto Maple Leafs are red hot. They've won 5 straight, 10 of their last 11. We moved to 12-5-1 on the season. We are tied for first in the Atlantic. I think Florida might be playing tonight. I could be wrong on that one. So who knows where the standings will be sitting tomorrow morning. But as of right now, as far as I know, we're tied for first in the Atlantic. Things are exciting around the Leafs, the organization itself. But I did mention in last night's video, which kind of leads us to where we are right now, I had my own little conspiracy theory, and there is a lot of webs tied around it. You know, actually, Goody, again, you know what I'm going to do? A lot of times I'm going to pull in a verbal meme into these because I love just the idea of the meme, but just can't always throw it up right when I think about it. You know the verbal meme of the guy, I don't even know what TV show it's from, where he's like insane and he's looking at the board and he's got red strings everywhere on different pictures and he's like mapping things out.
Oh, yeah. I do know what you're talking about.
That was me after last night when I mentioned it on the pod, and I started thinking about this more and more. That was what was going on inside my brain, trying to figure out what's
happening. Connecting the dots.
Yeah, I'm just trying to connect things, tying strings together, putting it from one side to the other. And let me stop just beating around the bush with it. The first thing that led me to this, and I want to get your thoughts on this right away before we even dive into the rest of it. Travis Dermott gets in the second game instead of Timothy Liljegren. Now, the first game, which someone mentioned in the comments after I had mentioned it, was maybe they're just giving Liljegren some rest. And after that, I thought, hey, fair enough. But it happens again, and it happens 2 days later. It's not even on a back-to-back, but Dermott gets in again, Liljegren again sitting out. My very first thought, are the Leafs possibly showcasing Travis Dermott for a potential trade here? Because I can't see any reason Timothy Liljegren should sit out back-to-back games, let alone the one. In the first place, the one was weird. Someone said maybe rest. Fair enough. I got it. I didn't have any problem with that. But it happens again, and I start thinking maybe something more is going on here.
I'd imagine that they are trying to showcase Travis Dermott, trying to get him back up to some sort of respected value in the NHL, because if they can move him and get even, like we're saying, some magic beans back, some draft picks, whatever it is, get that contract off of the books, get Travis Dermott somewhere else where he'll have more opportunity and just suit the Leafs a little bit better. It could be a little bit of addition through subtractions. Right now, they don't really know what to do with Dermott. Liljegren, that's his spot now. I think that we can all agree on that. And, with the rest argument, I mean, Liljegren's so young that I feel like those are the guys you kind of try to ride throughout those parts of the season where the games are very close. You know, I can't believe that they would actually be trying to rest him per se. This is definitely them trying to get Travis Dermott some ice time because he hasn't had a ton of it this season, and they need to give him some sort of trade value if they're going to get anything back for him at this point. So I definitely think that's a likely situation.
Yeah, same page entirely on that. And the other part too, to just even add on to the Liljegren thing, is this is a guy without much NHL experience. Wouldn't you want him playing a lot? Wouldn't you want to give him every opportunity? So
when you're winners of 5 straight, I mean, Liljegren to me has been playing great. He's really solidified himself as a routine part of the lineup, and Travis Dermott's done the exact opposite. And Keefe has done some unexplainable things. But you know what? You've come up with good theories all around for what's going on with Sheldon Keefe's brain right now. The blender theory about, when the playoffs come, if someone's hurt, these guys are going to need to know how to play with each other. So that's why everyone's moving everywhere in the lineup. That made sense to me, and what was a very confusing move by Keefe. And then this as well, I think that they are trying to get him some trade spotlight before ultimately deciding whether or not they're going to pull the trigger. And I think if there's a deal that's even semi-tempting and trade deadline approaches, they're going to take it, because I think at this point they're ready to move on from Travis Dermott. And I'm always a Travis Dermott defender. I like Travis Dermott. I think he's got an underrated skill set, but he's had a bit of a struggle trying to fit into this winning core. When he had no expectations, he looked better than he was. And now that we're expecting him to be a night in, night out guy, it's not the same. They want to move him.
That what you just said there is the most important part of that statement, is when he had no expectations, he looked very good. And you're bang on with that. When he came up here, we did. Pat ourselves on the back. We knew who he was because he's from around our area. And I played in a Roger Nielsen's hockey camp with him when I was 8 years old, and I watched him play, and he grew up around our city, and he was in the rinks when we were. And yeah, he went to both of our high schools, actually. He's listed as an alumni at my high school as well, and then he played in Erie, and Connor McDavid played in Erie, and then someone you and I played lacrosse with played in Erie with him. And it's just, we've known who he was, but okay, outside of that, who knew who Travis Dermott was? Who knew what kind of player Travis Dermott was? He was relatively unknown. So he comes up here and you're thinking, here's some young guy that we drafted in the second round and draft and develop young defensemen and all. Hoorah. And then it's like, okay, this guy's great. He's exciting. He's fast. He's got these crazy shoulder head shakes. And now we're like 3-4 years later and we're like, dude, can you just like bug off with the shoulder shakes and just pass the puck? Like, it's a little much. Because we have expectations that he was going to continue to develop, and it didn't really. But the one thing that actually did stick out in my mind of what you have said here is that if we could trade him for keywords here, the magic beans, draft picks, but I think the most important part of the magic beans statement is the cap space. And here is where my conspiracy theory, the ropes from one side to the other, starts to pull itself together, and there's going to be people, and I completely understand that, are going to say, dude, you are reaching, perhaps, but let's see how this plays out, and let me explain. We are a couple weeks away from someone coming off of our LTIR and bringing back $1.6 million to our cap space, or to our cap hit on this team. That would be Ilya Mikheyev, who's been out for 4 weeks now. I think he's about 2 weeks away from coming back. $1.6 million to a guy that we don't necessarily know that we need right now. Now, the other part of it is, you know how much cap space we have? None.
Zip.
Full zero. You go on Cap Friendly right now. Cap Friendly, shout out Cap Friendly. That is one of the best tools I've ever found for hockey for hockey information in terms of contracts, contract comparables. You ever want to find that stuff out there, go to Cap Friendly. It's a great site for that. That's where I get a lot of the stats and information. But they have right now projected cap space $0. It just says $0.
You don't see that too often. You get it right down to the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, just nothing. So where does that 1.6 mil go? Well, something has to move. And this is where this all starts to get interesting, because you can't just push a guy to the minors or push $1.6 million worth of space to the minors. That's where the problem comes, because you can't move Semyonov and Liljegren down to the minors and open up enough space for Mikheyev to come here. It doesn't work. You need more than that. And then once you move Semyonov and Liljegren, now you're out of space for extra players on your roster. Now you're out of space for guys taking up spots in practice or being depth pieces. Like, you lose that once that comes back. So this is where I think that point of the Dermott showcase becomes even stronger, because it's not this exact same, but Dermott is at a 1.5 mil cap hit here. And this is where you can look at a guy who could be moved on as a piece to bring someone else in.
Yeah, according to the numbers, something does need to give here. And logically, I mean, you're putting 2 and 2 together here. Travis Dermott comes back into the lineup in a situation where it makes no sense to do it. Yeah. And like I said, you are the Sheldon Keefe mind reader, because I have no clue what's going on in that guy's head. But when you decipher it and find some clues as to why he might do this, some incentives, I think you're bang on. I think that they do want to move Travis Dermott, because without it, you need to move down multiple players off of your roster to compensate for Ilya Mikheyev coming back.
Yeah.
And I mean,
that's the problem, right? Is like, it's more than one. You need to move more than
practically.
One.
And then what? You have empty roster spots. It makes no sense. Like, something needs to budge here. And I mean, it looks like it's going to be Travis Dermott, but who knows what that market is looking like at the moment. Playing him will give him an opportunity to raise that value. But yeah, I think that's where they're going with this move here.
Yeah, and then I think that this kind of like ties into one of the things that I actually am kind of intrigued by the move itself and why it happened. And this is the part of the situation that I think might be a tad bit of a stretch, but I think when you really, really start to break it down and and I'm not just saying this to justify my own sanity, I'm more so saying this because I think at some point this could start to make some sense, is that if Travis Dermott doesn't become a movable piece, or we decide that we need Travis Dermott because Brennan Meno in the minors isn't ready to come up, Biega isn't going to be good enough to play, Carl Dahlstrom won't be able to fit into this lineup. If you look at those guys and go, ooh, wait a second, they can't play in the NHL right now, then you're looking at 1 through 6 of what your 6 is right now: Riley, Brody, Muzzin, Hall. Let's say Sandy and Liljegren as your 6 and Dermott as 7. You do need 7. It's important to have 7. And if you sit here and say, okay, we can't afford to be calling up a guy from the Marlies, we need Dermott to be 7, then now you're looking elsewhere to move on from money.
But you know what? Dermott's an expensive 7. I think that's the main issue here, is that for what he gets paid, right? You could live with your 7 not being an over-the-top NHL impact guy. And Dermott, I think, is a 7. He's probably, relative to the league, I'd say is a 7, a guy who's in the lineup rarely and just sort of there as a safety valve. Pretty good situation. Travis Dermott's not that bad. Obviously hasn't fit with this team and he's steadily gone down, but he's got some skill. I really don't think as your 7th defenseman, you're that hurt with Travis Dermott there. But when you're paying him, what was the contract? 1.6?
1.5.
1.5. So that's pretty expensive for someone sitting in the press box every night. That's where it becomes not practical at all.
That's where it starts to become cringy of like, oh, what is going on? That's when you go to the store and you make a big purchase. You buy a brand new TV and you just never turn it on. And you're like, you look at it, you walk past it every day and go, wait a minute. I got sucked into that Black Friday deal. What was I thinking?
How much did that cost me again?
Yeah, exactly. That's what you're looking at. He's in the lineup. You turn it on every day and you go, oh, that kind of hurt, but at least I'm using it. At least I turn on the TV. You don't turn on the TV anymore and you go, I could have put that money elsewhere. So that's kind of where it turns into with Travis Dermott sitting in the box. He's
collecting dust.
Yes. But so now here's where this gets... This is my weird brain turning this into something maybe more than it should have been. The Leafs this past week acquired Kyle Clifford. We acquired him for magic beans. We acquired him for future considerations.
That's even less than magic beans, man. That's like invisible beans.
No, that's a receipt for magic beans, or a coupon for magic beans.
There you go. Basically.
Yeah. So basically at this point, we go and acquire Kyle Clifford for future considerations, less than magic beans. And there's a number of different ways that you can look at it. And first things first, I want to look at it from the Kyle Clifford perspective of things. He's 30 years old. He had 7 points in 50 games last year with St. Louis. And through the first 2 games with St. Louis this year, he had 1 point. Not exactly fitting into what they're trying to do. They're third in their division. They're playing pretty well. They're on a roll, and he just doesn't fit where they're going, where they are right now, and he's just not playing up to the standard that they're looking for. They're going to move on from him. They put him on waivers. He clears waivers. He's going to go to the AHL, and this is just my interpretation of it. This is not factual in terms of someone's come out and said this. This is more of just kind of how I interpret the situation, is that he's going to go to the AHL. St. Louis's farm team isn't in St. Louis. He's 30. He has a family. Now he's going to have to move somewhere to play minor hockey, or you know, minor league hockey. Thank you. He's from Toronto area. He played for the Leafs before. The Leafs minor hockey team, I got to stop saying that, minor league team is very, very good in terms of how they treat their players, the type of organization they have, the type of money that they have, all of that. It's a very good situation for him to be in. Plus, he's from here. Plus, he has a family. He can bring them here. And then the flip side of this is that if he gets called up to the NHL, it's in the same city. He stays in Toronto, which is perfect for him. Perfect for him to have a family. So the Leafs acquire him for that. Now, I just want to remind everyone last year what we did with Alex Galchenyuk. He gets cleared on waivers, and then we trade for him. This is so that they can stay in the minors. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. If we claim them off waivers, they come to our NHL team. We have to, if we send them down, they have to clear waivers to be sent down, and then we've wasted something. we've wasted at least something having them on our roster and then sending them down because they can get claimed again. This way, doesn't have to clear. He comes to the team, he's already cleared. He can come back up. We can take him on the team, and he just fits into the minors. That's that. That's what that is. My whole thought in my head here, Goody, is where if the whole Travis Dermott situation starts to happen and we say we can't get rid of this guy, we need him at 7, you have to move money elsewhere. It has to happen. And the other thing too, which we can't forget, is guess who else is on the IR? Peter Mrazek, $3.8 million that's going to come off at some point. There's going to be more money that needs to move. Kyle Clifford will take up a $1 million cap hit, and if you can't get rid of Travis Dermott or a defenseman to clear up space, forwards have to go. Kyle Clifford is a left winger who adds depth to our left wing side. And there are 2 players, one who has not been playing much because he himself has been injured, and the other one who is a very comparable type player to the guy who has been injured, and that would be Mikheyev and Engvall. One or both may be a casualty in this situation. And if that comes to fruition, Kyle Clifford is there as some sort of depth, some sort of support. And that is kind of where ultimately that whole long spiel that I got on kind of leads me to believe that maybe, just maybe, he's that safety valve, safety piece there, underlying everything else, hidden away into the Marlies, just in case.
Well, I think you're spot on, Phil. Definitely, because great situation. He is someone that's played here before, and I'm just going to throw out his stats the last time he was with the Leafs in the 2019-2020 season. So in 16 regular season games, he had 1 goal, 2 assists, 23 penalty minutes, and he was only -1. Considering his role with the team, I'm not going to say these numbers jump off the page. They don't, but he kind of went in and did his job. And you know what? He's still 30 years old. He's from around here. There's a lot of positives and redeeming things about getting Kyle Clifford back in the Leafs organization, even as a safety valve, if that's all he is. And if we're in a great situation, I think that's all he remains, because you bring him up, then that cap hit happens and you have a bunch of different other extending circumstances. However, one other thing I want to say too about St. Louis giving him up, because they're doing pretty well, as you've already mentioned, and we're doing great at the moment. So everyone's thinking, why would we go pick him off of a roster that let him go and we're doing even better than they are? Well, to bring a Rickyism into this, one man's garbage is another man's ungarbage. And in this situation, the left wing depth on St. Louis is, I'm going to say it's better than ours. It's been the weakest point of our lineup is our left wing depth. They have Jordan Kyrou, Pavel Buchnevich, Brandon Saad, and then Klim Kostin, who I didn't know much about, but you said you spoke decently high of him. And I mean, Kyle Clifford, let's be real about it. He's pretty much a goon, but we'll take that on our team. Well, I mean, the numbers, they speak for themselves. Kyle Clifford has a job. He knows his role. And I think that's still something that we could use ultimately if it goes down that way. He's not a bad, just like a Travis Dermott in a way. He's not a bad option if you're down to your last option. Yeah. And thankfully, we don't need to pay for this because he is going to be with the Marlies. So I think he's going to act as a great safety valve here. I'm happy the Leafs have done this. And I mean, there's a little bit of a changes that are probably going to be coming with this Leafs group just for the financial sake of things. Because, Mikheyev coming back, things are going to come to a front pretty soon.
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, the acquisition of Kyle Clifford was 1A, St. Louis doing him a favor, and 1B, Kyle Dubas and the Toronto Maple Leafs doing him a favor, because making that move doesn't really affect either team. Let's be honest. MLSE, the whole MLSE organization, they got a lot of money. To pay a guy $1 million, whereas you'd be paying, $700,000 to a guy to play in the minors on a regular basis. If you're going to pay him $300,000 more, and he's a guy who's played for your team, he seems to be a good guy. He's from the Toronto area, and he's going to make the Marlies better. Let's be honest. He is going to make the Marlies better because he's got NHL experience. Why would MLSE not do that? Like, who cares to them? $300,000 is pocket change. Like, that's the easiest decision they can make. And they're doing it for a good cause. Like, really, that's kind of what's going on there, right? So that's 1A, 1B. Move. And then
the Marlies, they have the money to throw around like that. We've always talked about how the Marlies can just go get loaded up every single year because, they can pay out the guys at that level. A lot of other NHL franchise, we already knew the revenue splitting. There's not a lot of
Yeah.
wealth relative to other franchises. Like the Leafs have a ton of money. That's no mystery.
Yeah.
So the AHL, they can afford to do things like this, like signing a Kyle Clifford, or I guess in this case, trading for him.
Yeah. And then the second part of it, which we've just mentioned, is that there is money that has to come off the books for the Toronto Maple Leafs. This isn't a may, this is a must. Something must move. Someone at some point soon must move, because there is money coming off the books from two different guys that are eating up cap space. It has to happen. Something has to be freed up. And we've seen different situations. Amadio being claimed off waivers. Brooks being claimed off waivers. You lose guys to waivers. You lose some of that depth. You lose ability to move guys up and down. You lose guys on cheap deals. Kyle Clifford, not on the cheapest deal, but relatively, he's on a cheap deal. Now, if you end up in a situation where you have to move on from serviceable guys who are in your lineup right now, having a guy who's had NHL experience, having a guy who's familiar with the city, familiar with the organization, and a bunch of guys on the team around this team in case he needs to come up, it's not ever a bad thing to have. And I'm not sitting here saying, and I don't think you're of the same mindset, or I think you're of the same mindset as I am, in terms of we didn't acquire him to play in this lineup, but we acquired him in case someone's got to. Because if you look down into the Marlies, who I'd love to see Hosang come up, but it's one of those things. First, you have to sign him to a two-way contract. That's the first part of it. And the second part is he's not as proven in the NHL as Kyle Clifford. I'd love to give him the chance, but if you're in a situation of let's win right now, you can't necessarily give guys what can you do maybe situations. Sometimes you're just going to have to say, hey, we know what this guy is. We know what this guy can do. That's the guy.
Yeah. It's well, and in my opinion, I think when you look at the Marlies side of things, I mean, Hosang would be a cool story to come up, but the answer is going to be Nick Robertson once he's healthy.
Yes.
That's a left wing guy who can play in your top six, who realistically you're only going to call up to play in your top six. And he's still on like his rookie AHL minimum contract or whatever.
Level,
yeah. So that will be a pretty cheap solution. At that point, maybe you see Engvall booted out of the lineup, and that's a shame. I mean, Engvall's, the word I would use for it is survived. He's gotten through it. He's done his role. The third line collectively have been a good checking line for this Leafs. They've had a bit of more of an identity than they have in the past, and Engvall's been a part of that. Maybe not the focal point, but a surviving part. Unfortunately, but not for the fans. I mean, Nick Robertson coming back. Unfortunate for Engvall, but Nick Robertson will be the answer when he returns in December after his leg injury that he suffered in the AHL.
Yeah, exactly. And then, obviously, as we said, more cap space is going to have to come off here. The lineup looks pretty good as is, but money has to be moved. Money has to be moved around for guys to come back. And, hey, maybe it's as simple as gas Mikheyev. We get rid of Mikheyev.
Yeah.
But
oh, man, I've been a fan of that for a while. But these are really good problems to have. I mean, we're sitting at a 12-5-1 record atop our division, and we're talking about like last minute tweaks to make sure the financials and the practicals are all working out. This is a good situation to be in. Nothing is too pressing right now in Leafs land, which is a nice change of tempo from the way we started the season.
And one of the most comforting feelings ever, if you're a Leafs fan looking at the cap situation, being concerned about it, we have the capologist, Brandon Pridham, there. That guy is apparently a wizard with the cap. He wrote the cap himself. He finds ways around it to make it work for this team. We've seen it in different scenarios where they send guys down, call guys up in the same day, move guys to different countries and leagues and whatever just to make things work. So that guy obviously knows what's going on. And they are not sitting here in the same planning stages of what's happening that we are. These are things that have been thought out ahead of time. But as far as speculation goes, I think that it's pretty relevant in terms of what may happen. We know things are going to have to move. It's pretty evident that Dermott is in here for some type of reason, and neither of us are under the mindset that it's because he's playing well. Like, it's for some type of showcase. Regardless of if it's showcasing to the Leafs or showcasing to teams around the league, there's some type of showcase happening here because guys are going to have to move. Money's going to have to be moved. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next couple of weeks once that money starts coming out of LTIR and having to go back into the salary cap.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. And let's see what Travis Dermott can do. That's going to be the telltale sign of how realistic a deal is to get done. Because if he continues to struggle, then I mean, maybe the Leafs find some way to do something just to get him out of Toronto. But ultimately, you do want some little bit of return, even if it's just magic beans. We don't want the invisible magic beans or the receipt for the magic beans.
Yeah.
I want the actual magic beans. So I'm hoping he can string together a decent group of games here and hopefully get moved to the right place. And I'd be happy to see Dermott go somewhere where he'll get a little bit more ice and hopefully develop into the player we thought he could be when he started with Toronto.
Yeah. Well, this will be interesting to see how this plays out going forward. Make sure you guys let us know in the comments. Do you think Kyle Clifford was brought here because he could get into this lineup, or was it strictly for just the good of Dubas's heart, the good of St. Louis's heart to send the guy back here? Is Travis Dermott on his way out? Is Ilya Mikheyev on his way out? If a guy from this Leafs team has to be moved, who do you think it should be? Should we go for draft picks? Should we go for players in return? What kind of deals do you guys think are on the table that are available to this team that we could be getting back? But we look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments. And I want to remind everyone before we go, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Goody and I are on the road to 2,000 subscribers. Every single subscriber means so much to us. We look forward to getting to that 2,000 mark. When we do that, we'll try to make sure we get onto a live. It was absolutely electric when we hit the 1,000 subscriber mark. It was a lot of fun. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, and hopefully things can happen sooner than later. But until that point, we will see you guys tomorrow after the game against the Pittsburgh Penguins, Saturday, November 20th at 7 p.m. We'll see you guys then. Leafs fans, keep believing.
Signing off.